We're starting to get a little bit of the smoke from Yosemite, the Yosemite fire. Did you hear about that on the news?
I did not hear about that. I'm sorry to hear it. I hope you guys are safe.
Yeah. It's east of us, so that's okay. And it's just starting to drift a little bit into the bay. But it's summer, and it's that time of year where it happens. And I know you were dealing with heat waves too a while, and the big heat wave where you're at, right?
It was pretty hot last week, and it's been on and off this week. But we're supposed to get a lot of rain this week, which will cool it off a little bit. But the Midwest and other places are getting it a whole lot worse than we are. But yeah, it's just the middle of the summer and it sucks. we get the humidity here in Virginia.
Rain would be nice. I can't remember the last time we saw rain here. It's like, wow. I feel like we're living in Mad Max out in California.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. But anyways, welcome to our continuing conversation. Me and Jim, just so you know, in between episodes, between the 168 hours in a week, we never stop talking about Star Trek Adventures. That's all we do. And then occasionally, once a week, we just go ahead and hit record and you come in, and that's our continuing conversation. So we don't shower. We just change right here at the thing, but that's what just happens. All right. I'm Michael Dismuke, very smelly. And I'm with Continuing Missions, which is the #1 Star Trek Adventures blog in the universe. And I'm also a freelance writer for Star Trek Adventures RPG. Jim Johnson, introduce yourself.
I'm Jim Johnson, the project manager and line editor for the Star Trek Adventures role-playing game published by Modiphius Entertainment, co-host of this show, longtime Star Trek fan. And I did shower, but I have not shaved in a while. I think this is one of the side effects of working from home full-time and not really having anywhere to go and nothing to do other than just work and take care of my family. Of course, my son's out of school at the moment because it's the summer. So I just haven't really had anywhere to go. It's like, why shave? Why take the time? Nah. But
hey.
now I'm at that weird point where it's like, it's scruffy and itchy. And like, no matter how I turn my head, it catches on something. So I think I'm just going to mow it in the next day or two here and just be done with it.
Man, you're just pulling the William Riker. There's nothing wrong with that.
I wish.
I wish I could grow facial hair like that. I really can't. I try.
Yeah, well, see, my problem is that like everything here on the side, on the sides of my chins, this comes in blonde or gray, and so you can't see. Like it doesn't get dark and thick, and I'm not vain enough to dye it. So I get the beautiful neck beard if I really wanted to grow it out, but I don't really care to. I used to do a goatee. I used to sport a goatee, but now that I've got the salt and pepper stuff, I just don't care. So I just shave it all completely when I bother to shave it all.
So I live next door to an esthetician and cosmetologist from age 13 on, and she started waxing my face at age 13. I never actually started shaving till age 22.
Huh.
So I think that retarded my growth somehow. And so I had like the smoothest baby face at 21, 20, all the way to 25. Like if you see my wedding pictures, totally smooth.
I didn't even realize that esthetician was even a thing. Shows you what I know.
But I just heard that song in my head by Brad Paisley, I'm Still a Guy. Do you know that song?
I don't know that song.
You gotta look it up.
All right, I'll look it up.
Yeah, Brad Paisley, I'm Still a Guy. He's one of my favorites.
Okay.
All right. Anyways, what are we riffing on today? Today, we are actually talking about what we've been observing on social media conversation regarding Star Trek Adventures. This is both on Discord. We see it on Reddit. We see it on Facebook. Those are some of the spots I see it on. I'm sure there's a million other boards that Jim peeks in on. But this is really about how do you get your group started? So often, I constantly see people like, hey, who wants to play here? How do I get a game started? Or I'm about to start my first game and there's some trepidation toward that. What are you hearing out there, Jim?
Same thing. I hear, and it's interesting because, actually, by the time we air this, it'll probably be over, but we have another Humble Bundle going right now.
What's a Humble Bundle? Explain that.
So the great folks at Humble Bundle, humblebundle.com, they reach out to all the different game companies, not just RPGs, but computer game companies, other companies, et cetera. And then what they do is they work up this deal where you have different tiers. Like for $5, you get a couple of things. For $10, you get more things. And for $30, you get a whole bunch of things. And a lot of the money goes to charity, right? So it's not just a way to get stuff cheap. It's you're actually going to charity. So Humble Bundle and Modiphius have done a lot of different initiatives over the last several years, including a few Star Trek Adventures Humble Bundles. And we've got one going now. Humble Bundle invited us back. This is how it works. They said, hey, we really liked what happened with the last couple Star Trek Humble Bundles. We'd like you to do another one. We mixed up the product offerings a little bit to make it a little bit different, a little bit fresh. And so for like $30, you get almost the entire line in PDF form, which is a ridiculous deal. Like, this is a super good deal.
Yeah.
And not only is it a good deal just to get stuff cheap, but you're also helping charity. There's a charity that's near and dear to Modiphius's hearts, and they want to support that group of people. So if you want a bunch of the new stuff too, because we got Shackleton, the Player's Guide, and the Game Master Guide all in this Humble Bundle for the first time. So if you've been kind of like on the fence about these things, go, like, I don't know, it's like $8 or something. So like literally, not to be ableist, because I know we're heading for a recession and like people are, money conscious and stuff, like, but like if you can save up $8, this is the cheapest, best way to get some of these products. And it's just a wealth of gaming material that you're going to use for years and years and years and years and years. So check it out.
Yeah, I spent on Humble Bundle because as a writer, I want to have background information on Star Trek that others don't have. So I bought, paid $30, $35 maybe dollars, and I got the Humble Bundle for all the ships collection.
Yeah, I got that too.
That was just like, you can't find it all in stores anymore. You spend years trying to gather it all, and that Humble Bundle, and it went to a good cause. I think it was for Arbor Day, like planting trees, and now I have every single ship book, which is so key when I'm writing, just to get ideas and stuff like that. So
great reference material. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and it came at the right time too, because now that it's been announced, Utopia Planitia, is coming out. That was a great time to get those books for ideas, for story ideas. Yeah. So anyway, so my point, or not my point, but our collective point is that Humble Bundle has come out. So what happens is every time those Humble Bundles come out, thousands of people buy the bundle. They get the starter set, they get the core book, they get all the different PDFs that are in there, and they're like, okay, I just got 6 years worth of Star Trek dumped on me, or I've dumped it upon myself. I've got all the Star Trek stuff. I got this role playing game. I want to play it. Where are the players? Like, how do I find players? What do I do? And like, they're either players looking for a game to join, or they're game masters looking for players to play a game. Or they're like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I got this book. I've got this game. What's next? Like, what do I do with it now? And what? And here's why I want to talk about that group of people you just described. Because there's people like us who we want to play and are ready to play all the time. We just don't have the time.
Yeah.
Then there's people who have the time and they don't have the group.
Right.
And of that is a small subset, which you just mentioned. Not only is it people who are willing to be game master, there are some people who are afraid to be game masters too. And so we're going to talk today about how to get over that hump, because if you take the mantle on, that's a great way to start gaming, is not waiting to find a game master, but just starting to be the game master, right?
Yeah. And that's tricky. And I don't know how far down into the weeds we're going to go, but like
a weeds. Let's go.
What?
Let's go in the weeds.
Let's go in the weeds. One of the things I've discovered, and I didn't think about this much, but so I've been freelancing in the RPG industry for 20 odd years now. Bits and pieces here and there. I'm certainly not a professional or anything. I dabble. I'll be honest. I dabble quite a bit because I pick the stuff I want to work on. I don't just do it. I'm really kind of picky, and as a result, I don't have as many credits as others and my peers who've been at it for 20 odd years or whatever. But anyway. The last 6 years working exclusively on Star Trek Adventures has really opened my eyes to how games are designed and how a lot of role-playing game books, like our traditional ones, like the big, thick hardcovers with the massive amounts of rules and lore and stuff, are not really well suited for how people learn and how people play. Like to hand somebody a 400-page book and say, okay, go play this game. It's like, it's such a barrier to entry that like I was reading some statistics somewhere that like a large majority of people, when they get into the hobby, they're doing it because they have a game master who knows their stuff, and they're learning it by playing it with people who know their stuff. They're not reading the books. They're not reading the player's guide or the rule book or whatever. They're learning by the people that they're playing with, and that really tells me that I think. And, I'm not going to say that Star Trek's an exception because it's not. I think a lot of our rule books are overwritten, and are not written always in such a way that makes them easy to learn how to play the game. I think like the starter set and other companies that have done starter sets do a really good job of condensing the rules into like, here's exactly what you need to know to get playing. And I think we need to think about that. Not we specifically, but just like the industry as a whole needs to rethink how we present rules, because there's a new younger generation of players coming into the games that, no way do they have the patience to read a 300-page book.
That's funny that you say that. So I design learning at my company. I'm a gamification expert. I'm certified, and I design learning at the company. I run the department for organizational development. And one of the things we've learned now is we use microburst training. And what that means is if they have a question, they want to be able to answer it within 2 to 3 minutes. And so we do a lot of video production and a lot of skill practice job aids where it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We stick with the verb, noun, and people love it. And what you're saying is totally right. One of the reasons we decided to do this podcast video cast is because there's some people who are not going to go into these books unless they first hear about it and see it visually with us first. And then they're going to be like, oh, now I understand what that, and that's just multiple intelligence, different ways people learn audio, video, kinesthetically. So to your point, we understand that challenge for people who are thinking about, like, I'm intimidated about being a game master. We're going to try to simplify that today, give you some tips that I do to get into the game. Anything else about that you think in the future, how that's going to affect the book designs at Modiphius and Star Trek Adventures, Jim?
Well, I don't know. I can't speak to Star Trek Adventures, right? Because we're already pretty well established. But like I know that some of the newer RPGs that Modiphius is coming out with, like Dune and Homeworld, and even some of the newer stuff that are in development, like you can see a very clear progression in the rule sets where Infinity and Star Trek Adventures and Conan were pretty crunchy, even though they're not super crunchy, but they're kind of crunchy in terms of like a lot of rules, a lot of options, and then they get, not to say simpler, but just they're presented differently, right? Mm-hmm. So where Dune is a different effective kind of thing, and Fallout and et cetera. But I think Modiphius is learning as the more products they release, the more games they release. And I think we're getting smarter too, because we, like the Player's Guide and Game Master Guide, were huge because we were able to kind of like take all the last 5 years of what we learned and like repackage it and refresh it and say, okay, look, here's what Star Trek Adventures is, and let's focus on that. And I think what one of the challenges that we have now is that all these new fans that are coming into the game, buying the Humble Bundle or whatever, they're reading that core book from 6 years ago. And it's like, that core book from 6 years ago doesn't really truly reflect what we've learned in 6 years. So now they're asking questions because they're like, well, how does this work? How does this work? And it's like, oh yeah, well, 6 years ago it made sense. And now that we're 6 years into it, it's like, well, okay, now we need to refine it a little bit. So, I don't know what that looks like down the road, but whether it's
this is good then. So if I was a new game master coming in and I didn't have time to read a 400-page book, one of the things I would do is there's a lot of online resources. I think Modiphius has actually a really good series. It explains all the rules. I think Sam Webb is the one who stars in that. And if you type in Sam Webb, Modiphius, Star Trek Adventures, there's some cool how-to videos with visual too. Yeah. And so that's a great place to start to learn the basic rules. And from there, the core rulebook is more of a reference guide then, right?
Yeah, really, I think so. I think, you're right. And those videos are on the Modiphius channel. So if you go to Modiphius YouTube's channel, you'll find them. They're all there. I think it's like 5 or 6 videos. There's one on momentum. There's one on basic 2D20. But anyway, get the basics down. And like, seriously, I think we mentioned this in the Game Master Guide. Like, if there's nothing else that you take away from the core rule book, if you get just the basic task resolution down, right? Just the basics. Just tell your players, here's your target number. Difficulty. Whatever the difficulty is, here's your target number. Roll 2d20. Did you succeed or did you fail? Just get that basics down, because that plus your storytelling is probably the majority of what you're going to need to tell a great Star Trek story at the table with your friends. Then you can start adding in momentum, add in threat, add in all the other rules that to taste. But if you can just get that basic down, because at its heart, I think Star Trek Adventures is really a storytelling game. It's a collaborative storytelling game. And I have heard from so many, not just you, and me, but like so many other game masters and so many other players out there on Twitch and YouTube and so on and so forth, that the vast majority of their games are online, and they're either video or they're audio or they're just played by post. And it's all role playing, like 90% role playing. Now, certainly there is a very large portion of gamers that are doing the miniatures and the boards and the virtual tabletops and all that great stuff, which is super awesome. But like the majority of the folks that I'm hearing from and reading from are doing Star Trek style episodes and adventures, and they're doing the heavy role playing, and really they're not using a whole lot more than the basic mechanics plus momentum and threat, plus of course adding in values and all that great stuff. But
well, my advice to people to that is I would go to Modiphius's website, go to Star Trek Adventures, and type in the starter campaign PDF. And the reason why is it really cuts out all the fat from the core rulebook, and it gives you just those rules that you talked about, and it gives you a starting adventure, Rescue with Xerxes, which I played about 3 times so far, and it turns out differently every time with new players. It's really, I love playing with kids too. Kids love that one. And that one is I think it's only like 26 pages, maybe. Am I right? Around that?
The starter set, I think the campaign is maybe like 40 pages.
Okay, so with the campaign,
but it was specifically written to teach you the game as you play.
Yeah,
right? So that's an advantage.
So I'm going to tell everyone right now who is afraid to pick up the Game Master's mantle, pick it up, but don't pick it up with the core rule, but pick it up with the starter set. That's going to whet your appetite and whet the appetite of everyone else. And then I'm going to, based off experience of what books I've handed to my friends to start playing, the Game Master's Guide would be my next pick, because that gets you into the frame mind of it. And then if you have players, give them the player's guide. And my nephew's digesting that right now. He blogs on continuing missions. But that's the order I would do it. So start with the starter pack, read it once, and then start playing it with people. Don't worry about making mistakes. You're making it up as you go along anyways. And then do that, right? That would be a good place to start.
Yeah, so 2 thoughts there. The first thought would be if you're even hesitant to even spend money, like maybe you don't buy into the Humble Bundle, even though it's a fabulous deal. Maybe you want to do the zero cost option. Grab the Quick Start. Grab either the Starfleet Quick Start or the Klingon Quick Start. I think the Klingon Quick Start is a little bit better written, only because it came out 5 years after the Starfleet one, and we had 4 years of worth of experience to kind of like streamline it even further. But the 2 quick starts, like you were saying with the starter set, strip out a lot of the not so much fat, but some of the extraneous information that you don't need for a quick start. And it really simply explains the rules in a very clear, simple format. They're free, right? So go grab the starter, the quick start. I think the Klingon one's a little bit more accessible because it doesn't have the LCARs to fight against. It's got the white background. It's a little easier on the eyes. But either one will do you just fine to teach you the rules, because the rules didn't change between the Klingon book and the Starfleet book in terms of like the actual mechanics of how to play the game. So those are free on Drive-Thru-RPG or on the website. I'd say check those 2 out.
That's a really good idea. I would back that up is go through this as your first rule, play through that. Again, you just need the 20-sided dice and some chips, or you can use pennies for tokens if you want to do that. Yeah. But then after I go through those, I'd go with Kobayashi Maru. And Kobayashi Maru is another free module.
Yeah.
If you know a little about Star Trek, you know what that means, Kobayashi Maru. But that's one that's been very popular at game shops and also at conventions, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but I think your suggestion was right on. Starter set or quick starts or starter set, then grab the game master guide, the player guide for your players, and then go from there, right? Those are great ways to get into the game.
Well, and here's true story. I'm going to tell 2 true stories, which I love. So I have one friend, we had to go working. Sometimes I do video shoots at my company, and 2 videographers joined us. And we said, well, we shoot all day and then we're going to go ahead and play all night. And one knew Star Trek because they were a Voyager fan when they were a teenager. The other one had no idea about Star Trek whatsoever in their early 20s. And we sat down and we played Rescue at Xerxes, but based off of the tricorder set, which is that beautiful kit.
Yeah.
So we used that, and the person who knew Star Trek is like, okay, now we're playing and we're inviting my wife next time. And then the person who never heard anything about Star Trek before, he lives in San Diego, and he's like, I can't wait to see you again so we can play Star Trek again. Nice. And now that I think about it, I should just send them the starter set, right? And then the other day I had the nieces and nephews over, and we started again with the quick start guide, played Rescue at Xerxes again, but this time it was more TNG era, not TOS era. And that got my my nephew and my niece into playing regularly now whenever they come over. So free, costs no money if you think about it. And now they wanted to buy their own Game Master guide and Player's guide because they want to read up on it. So for all of those out there, that's the advice. Start with the free stuff, and then you're going to see a lot of help online to help you through it, right, Jim? There's a lot of helpful people out there.
Oh, I mean, in fact, there's an ongoing discussion right now on one of the RPG forums about how do games, like, how do the games that have longevity, how do they make it? How do games get longevity, right? And one of the key points is, like, they have a passionate fan base. Like, the games that have a passionate fan base are the ones that stick around. Even if the company eventually dissolves or the company eventually stops the games that have legs, that have passionate fans, are the ones that stick around. And the Star Trek Adventures fans are so supportive of each other, which is shocking. Not shocking, but it's amazing. Like, so from like Discord and Continuing Mission and Reddit and the Facebook groups and the official forums, there's so many fans out there that are willing to help newbies and each other, like, find players and, rules clarifications and creating new content, all that stuff. Like, this game, as far as I can tell, and I'm pretty well plugged in, but I feel like this game has a really strong fan base that are supportive of other fans and are even kind of creating new fans. I would love to see more of that, and I would love to see, like, I would love to figure out a way. This is the age old discussion of, like, I would love to figure out a way to train up more GMs, so that more GMs can go out there and run the game for more players, and grow the grassroots of the game up, little by little, like every long-term game does. But we're still figuring that out. And I think the Player Guide and the Game Master Guide, I'm not here to plug them, but I'm just telling you that we spent so much time on those two books, and we built in 4 years worth of knowledge into those books to where, like, you're right, get the free quick start or get the cheap starter set, but then make your first investment, the Player Guide or the Game Master Guide. And one of the reasons why, not that you can't find this online already, but we tried to put it in a curated list of episodes to watch. So if you are completely new to Star Trek and you don't know anything about Star Trek, you're like, what's Star Trek other than what you know from the collective unconsciousness out there in the universe? I mean, it's been around for 55 years. It's a super popular property. I'm sure you've heard of Star Trek, even if you don't realize it.
Or at least you heard of Spock, at least.
Yeah, or Kirk. But like, grab a couple of those episodes off that list. It's in the first chapter of both the PG and the GMG. Grab a couple episodes. They're all available on streaming. I'm sure somebody who has the discs. Like, it's not hard to find Star Trek. You can even go on YouTube and watch chunks, clips of episodes if you want to. There's so many different varieties of Star Trek. Watch a couple episodes, you'll get it. Right. Yeah. And then my biggest advice for brand new game masters who know very little about Star Trek is, like, I hear that a lot of game masters are super intimidated by the 55 years worth of lore. You got so many series and books and games and stuff. Like, don't worry about any of it. Just tell your story. Tell your version of Star Trek. Whatever Star Trek means to you, like get your group together, do that session 0, like the PG and the GMG talk about. Have a good session 0, talk about what you think Star Trek is for the purposes of your group. And then use the basic mechanics, like the basic task resolution, momentum, and the threat, if as appropriate. Just start off with the bare basics that you need just to start telling stories together. Because, like, we're all storytellers. Like, it's human nature to be storytellers. So just riff off each other and tell great Star Trek stories together. And then, and what's important, though, and I'll get off my soapbox, I promise.
No, it's good.
There is no wrong way to do it. You're not going to do it wrong.
Right. And
just
what
have
I want
fun.
But I do want to say what sets, if you're a game master and you're say, okay, I'm willing to take up the mantle, I'm going to give it a try. You're trying to find a selling point for your friends to say, hey, this is different than just Dungeons and Dragons. This is different than Star Wars, right? Because that's people who don't know sci-fi may mix those two genres up. My mom she's like, oh, you're writing for Star Wars? No, mother, it's Star Trek. I show her all the books. It's like Star Trek. So we know those people are out there. But what gets them, and this got my friends and my nephews, is when you tell them that all of a sudden, unlike reality nowadays, Star Trek is about a future where mankind has solved its major problems. Mm-hmm. There's no hunger, there's no poverty, there's no prejudice, there's no bias. And what they're doing is going out there in the universe and finding species that are still dealing with those problems, and they're trying to help them. When I frame it like that, they're like, what? Well, what about money? No, you don't need money in this future. They're replicators and they take care of everything you need. Okay, well, what about, homelessness? No, because humanity's spreading out and colonizing the stars, and you probably came from one of those colonies. And that just, or maybe you're a species that met them and said, yeah, we like the Federation. We like and when you frame it like that, like, where's the action then? Oh, you'll see some action. Watch. Now, all of a sudden, they're like, wow, we're the best we can be. And so GMs, be willing to start with a starter pack, a simple thing, but frame it for your friends or interested people and say, this is going to be different. And when you walk away from a Star Trek game, you walk away feeling successful and uplifted, which is so different than 90% of our days when you turn on the news, right? Yeah. And so, again, you have to have that as your selling point, too, I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you do want to play a rock'em sock'em, cut people in the head off, you have the Klingon campaign.
Yeah. Or you pick your era of play. Like the original series was certainly more fisticuffs and hands-on than a more thoughtful Next Generation, partly because the casts are different and your leaders are different. But I mean, gosh, at this point, there's 11 Star Trek series. There's 13 movies. There's so much to play with. Like, I mean, from Lower Decks to Prodigy to DS9 to Picard. There's tonal differences. There's age ranges. There's all kinds of wiggle room. I mean, literally, Star Trek, you can do any genre of storytelling in Star Trek, from horror to romance to deep philosophical musings to scientific exploration, wartime campaigns, war, drama, mysteries, etc. I mean, there's like any kind of story that you like and your group likes that you would want to tell. It'll fit somewhere. Well,
going back to what you said, too, about people being visual learners, people may not want to read about the technology of Star Trek. So my advice is watch Prodigy. Each episode took a common Star Trek trope and had the characters discovering what it means. And I had my 13-year-old niece watch that. She's 14 now. But when she probably was 12 then. I had her watch it, and she right away, when we went to playing the game, she's like, oh, yeah, I remember that. Don't we have transporters? Yes, you do. Mm-hmm. And so I thought Prodigy was a really good visual cartoon instructional on Star Trek tropes.
Yeah.
There's so many ways to tackle it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I want to make sure we didn't get too far off track here. So like as far as encouraging new game masters to just run the game. So I think we've covered, get the free stuff, get the inexpensive books where you can get them. And then start basic with the rules. And then don't worry about all the wealth of canon. Just like find what works for your group and then have fun and go with it. Do we want to talk a little bit about how to actually find players?
Yep.
Some of the tools and tricks to do that.
Yep. Because I've seen some good things, but why don't you start?
Okay. Well, I would say we are still in a global pandemic, like love it or hate it. You might have a local game group or a game shop, like a friendly local game store. You might have a comic book store nearby. You might have a college game group or something. I don't know, wherever you are, but maybe you're still meeting in public or maybe meeting in person. That's totally fine. Please be careful. Please be safe. But I know that a lot of game stores will give you tables to host a game. Sometimes they might even be willing to let you take the shrink wrap off a product if you use it and buy it or whatever. But work with your local game group to get the products like the starter set or dice or whatever. And run the game there, because then you got an audience to watch you. They're like, what are you doing? This is interesting. Oh, it's Star Trek. Okay, that's cool. I didn't even know there was a Star Trek game, blah, blah, blah. And you can build a fan base that way. You can do what I did for 30 something years ago when I was looking for gamers for my Star Trek game. This is well before even Last Unicorn Games was out. I actually typed up an advertisement and said, hey, I want to run a Star Trek game. I'm looking for any mature 18-year-olds who want to play Star Trek. Here's my phone number. And it was like a little tear-off slip and I posted that in my comic book store, on their bulletin board. And it may seem hokey now because this was pre-internet and this was pre-discussion boards. This is even pre-texting, right? If you can believe it, that far back. But you know what? I got 4 phone calls, and I got one of my lifelong friends out of that. out of just posting that silly message on a bulletin board looking for Star Trek players. So
for those of you who've discovered Fire, there's other options. I've been noticing on Discord and Reddit and even Facebook where people have been posting links to their Zoom thing, and they're saying, "Hey, first come, first serve. Let's jump on Zoom together and let's explore this together. I just bought the books." I love that. I mean, honestly, even if you don't know what you're doing, I guarantee you that if you get 2 or 3 people to show up to that Zoom party, you're going to have a game. And then you could always type in on continuing missions how to run a session 0. We actually have videos showing us building our first session 0. But I want to encourage people to do that too. I've been really proud actually on Discord seeing people just posting links. I didn't know at first what LFG stood for. And it took me a while to figure it out. It's looking for game. So any of you who see LFG, that means there's people looking for the game, #LFG. So you could start there. And I've even seen some of our writers and professional, I haven't done this, but some of our writers from Star Trek Adventures actually leading a group just to set someone off on their way, and they hand them the reins of the game and then go. So would I be willing to do that? I actually would be willing to do that. I'd be willing, if you have a gaming group and you've never seen it in play before, I'd be happy if I have the time and we schedule it out, I'd be happy to sit for an hour and a half, set you through the first scene and say, you got it? You saw how to roll the dice? Bye. I think that would be actually cool to do.
Yeah. And I'll be the first to admit, I want to do that. I just don't have the time. I just have not been able to find the time to make it work. Like I had this whole thought in my head of like this, of this whole program where I would like invite, like I would literally reach out, like as I'm on social media, I would be like, oh, hey, random person, you just said you want to play the game, but you can't find a group. Be here, Saturday night. I'm going to run something, and I do that 5 times with 5 random people. I run a real quick hour-long thing, give them the basics of it, and then let them go off and go do their own games, and then let it spread that way. But
imagine if you did it with breakout rooms. What if everyone?
Oh, that would be so cool.
If everyone came in and we just send them into breakout rooms and then leave them to their wiles. And just drop in and watch them for a little while and give them a little guidance and then go away again. Right, that would be really cool. Anyway, that's the sidebar, but we'll have to think about that. I think there's some potential there. But yeah, hit us up on Discord if anybody wants to do that. Just hit us up on Discord. I'd be curious to see what kind of reaction we get.
Yeah, but again, so if you're a new game master or a new player to Star Trek and you happen to stumble upon this video, go to the official Modiphius Discord. Go to Facebook and search Star Trek Adventures groups. There's several of them. You'll find us eventually. Go to the official Modiphius forums. You'll find us eventually. Go to they're all unofficial, but go to the Star Trek Adventures subreddit. There's gamers there. Those are the 4 primary ones I can think of. I think there are other social media channels that have game stuff, but I just don't know them. Like I know RPG.net. There's a general discussion forum that talks about it, and there's a looking for gamers groups there, but I don't see a lot of Star Trek on there. N-World, of course, is heavy Pathfinder and D&D, but you might find a few gamers there. But yeah, Discord, Facebook, the subreddit, and the official forums are probably the 4 best places to start looking for gamers. Yeah,
I know we just passed it too, but Free RPG Day happens once a year. Yep. And that's a great time to plan ahead. On this year, it was June 25th. Yep. But plan ahead, go to the game shop. People are going to learn and look at free RPGs. So you're going to have people walking in and just ask for a table and say, hey, let's try this one. And that might be your gaming group too. So once a year, you get an opportunity if you want to play with live people to go to your local game shop and do that.
Yeah. And if you're interested in seeing the game in action online, Modiphius now has a part of their website that has a list of all the different game groups out there that are streaming, like whether it's on YouTube or on Twitch or whatever. Go check out some of their stuff. Go grab an episode of Shielded tomorrow, or there's a whole bunch of them. Starship Tempest are the ones I can think of off the top of my head. Just grab one of those, watch it for a few minutes, half an hour. Skip ahead through the videos a little bit. There you go. Some of them have really high production quality values. Don't let that scare you off, because not everybody's going to have the uniforms and the LCARS layout and the fancy music and all that stuff. Don't worry about the trappings. Like, just get to the get to the meat of it. Yeah, there's so many, and they're so good. This is so great to watch all this stuff.
This is probably I would say probably the most popular is Shield of Tomorrow. Wouldn't you?
That's the original. Yeah, that was one of the first ones.
Yeah, and I would say this is probably the most interactive. They really get into it. Like what I like about them is they're the ones I watch, low on dice rolls, big on drama. That's the way I like to play. But other ones are showing you when and how to use the dice. So yeah, if you're a visual learner, look at all of these tutorials you have access to.
Yeah. And Shield of Tomorrow is a good example too. And I don't mean I love them, and I don't mean this in any way derogatory, but they don't always get the rules right, but they don't care because they're telling a great story, and that's exactly the mindset you need. Is don't let your game get stopped, or don't let your game grind to a halt because you have to go flip through the book looking for some arcane rule about something. Just make it up. Just go. Yeah. Just let the drama carry you through whatever makes sense. Say yes and then go on to the next thing. Right? Don't let the rules. Don't sweat the rules. You can always look it up later. In the afterglow of playing a good session. But
and while we're giving advice, my thing is I actually only believe you need to roll the dice if you're uncertain if the people can succeed. That's an if. We're dealing with Star Trek experts here, so if it's a big thing. But many times when the narration is flowing, I don't even worry about the dice because fortunately I'm with players who want to fail forward. They want to make mistakes to create ramp up intensity. So here you're going to see a whole variety of different skill levels, not even skill levels, different play styles. And that's why it's worth going to Modiphius and checking out the streamed recorded sessions here. It's really, really good.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. But I guess last thing I'll say, just related to Star Trek and Star Trek Adventures specifically, is Nathan Dowdell, who designed and developed this game. He created. Now, this is my opinion. He may very well say something very different if we get, and we need to get him on a show someday. But he created a narrative role playing game that is Star Trek through and through. Like if you watch the Star Trek episodes on television or the movies or whatever, and you want that kind of feel and experience at the game table with your friends, this is it. And specifically because if you play this game and your players are into it, and you get that scene economy in your mind, you're going scene to scene to scene, plot point to plot point, and you're doing it. That's just natural storytelling at its best. And the rules can almost go into the background because you're just telling great stories back and forth, and you're getting all about the character and all about what's happening. And if you and your group can put together some really cool characters and then just have them riff on each other in a room, you've done the work. You're there. You're having a great time. So
I'm going to suggest since if you want to, again, approach the game without a lot of pew pew and fires and mechanics, I'm going to make one suggestion of another module that I played. It's short. It's amazing if you really want that narration, and it was free. And it was in Modiphius issue 2, and it was called Ghost Rider by Michael Duxbury. Yeah. That one right there, if you know Star Trek and the flavor you're looking for, you got the free starter pack for the rules. You got that free Michael Duxbury story called The Ghost Rider. That one to me would sell anybody on, I got to play this game. So that would be a good combo for easy, low dice rolling if somebody wants that.
Yeah.
Cool.
So did we answer the question we wanted to answer? I don't know.
I think so. We talked a lot about it. The biggest thing is pulling people away from the fear of trying. It's once you try and and you have a couple people who are supportive and want you to succeed, just at the beginning say, hey, everyone, do you want to succeed at this? Yeah, we want to succeed at it. Okay, so understand, I don't have everything memorized. You don't either. We're going to go through it, and we're going to just roll dice if we have some questions, or we're just going to talk it out and just push forward. I guarantee you that once you play once and you have that attitude, you're going to come back a second time. You're going to, and you're going to regret it if you ever hesitate and get analysis paralysis on this. You got to just jump in. And again, we're a big community out here. You can reach out to us, and we're going to help, stir you on and give you a lot of good ideas. Right.
Yep, absolutely. And the Modiphius police are not going to come to your house and tell you you're playing it wrong. Star Trek is not going to call. I just blanked on. Alex Kurtzman is not going to come to your house and tell you to stop playing Star Trek because you're doing it wrong or whatever. Like there's no wrong way to play this game. You just play it the way that you and your group want to play it, and just go run and have fun with it. And then tell us about it. Like, get online, get onto one of the social media platforms and tell us what kind of fun you're having with it so that we can all celebrate with you, because that's all we want to do is we want people to have fun and play the game and do Star Trek and find something joyful to do in this horribly challenging world that we're in right now. Right. Find the joy where you can get it. So have fun with Star Trek. And
one more story on our way out. It's funny because just today I had a conversation with Michael Freeman. He's a fan of Star Trek, and he plays on one of my games. And he has played one module. In fact, the one you wrote, he played Joy Lies in the Soul of Doing 3 different times with 3 different groups.
Wow. Okay.
And we had a conversation on the Facebook, so Star Trek Adventures Facebook group today. And I said, well, how was that? He says 3 different outcomes. And he says the angles, I was engrossed each time. So to me, that was fascinating. And the reason I say that is because on continuing missions, we're always happy to post your post-play report. Don't worry about punctuation and stuff like that. We're all about fan service, and we don't want you to hold your stories onto yourself. We want you to tell your stories with us. So as long as it's kid friendly, PG-13, continuing missions is happy to host your stories, your videos, and anything like that, because we're all about the fans.
That's awesome. It's such a great service, Michael. And it's funny because I know that there's like a lot of different games have a lot of different game sites out there. I have to admit that I would have to really struggle to think of another fan website for 2D or for Star Trek Adventures specifically out there. Like I know that there are specific groups that do STA on Twitch and YouTube and whatever. And some other folks generate content, but they're usually posting it on Facebook or Discord or the subreddit. And I certainly am not saying this to disparage anybody, but I don't think there's another site for Star Trek Adventures, anything even remotely close to continuing mission. And I think I almost wonder if you just, not to say you got lucky, but I wonder if you planted, because you were in it so early in the life of the game, right? I wonder if you kind of like planted your flag in the ground so early that everyone just kind of flocked to you and said, "Oh, well, here's content, and I just can't.
I can tell you,
maybe it's just a whole. I can't think of another fan site out there for STA that isn't continuing mission.
Well, let me give you some basics. So we started in late 2017. Okay.
Wow. Right away.
We started right in late 2017, and it's not just myself. It's Tony Pye. It's Colin Wilson. I mean, we have some of the greatest fans who contribute to us. We've published 1,314 posts as of today. So these are articles that are just about Star Trek Adventures. It's all fan service. It's ideas, concepts, answering questions about the game, interviews like this, interviews with Dayton Ward, Scott Pearson, heavy hitter writers, everybody who's contributed into it. And when it comes to last year, how many hits we have, just showing you about the resource of information that's available out there. We had over 415,000 views last year with 78,000 distinct visitors. So distinct visitors, maybe someone that's on their iPad and on their PC. So sure. Let's divide that by 2 and figure 40,000 unique visitors, but definitely people from all over the planet. So it's fun to have this source. And I was a fan of, I'm going to be a fan either way. And I remember I always wish I had a source of a place for people to look at my story, whether it's 3 people or whether it's 300, I don't care. Yeah. And so that's kind of the service that we have. And then again, it turns into back to Modifius, and you as project manager too, is that you actually want to hear these stories because you're doing something that Star Trek used to do back in the 70s. And you're saying, hey, come write for us. Yep. Don't just play the game, but if you're really that good and you're disciplined, and we have shows about how to become a writer and stuff like that, and what kind of writers you're looking for. Mm-hmm. I've never seen a community like this. So it makes it very easy to play this game. We want you to play. We're going to support you in playing it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, Michael and myself and a few other folks, we've been talking for a year and a half, maybe a couple of years now, about how do we come up with creative ways to create like a GM farm. Like how do we grow new GMs and how do we get them out there to build more groups? And I think this conversation will spark that again, and we'll think about it heading into 2023 here. But there's got to be a way we can do it. There's got to be an easy way we can use the technology available to us to make that happen.
Yeah, if you're sitting there right now with ideas, please comment wherever you watch us. If you watch on Facebook, YouTube, if you watch it on Podbean, we always want to do our shout out to, Jeff, who does our editing for this. Just give us ideas because we're desperate to find out how to do it.
Yeah, in fact, it doesn't have to be us doing it, right? It could be a whole team effort over here. Let's get a Star Trek Adventures strike team together, or not strike team, but like a what do they call it?
Makos.
No. I was thinking like a Tiger team. Let's get a Tiger team together and figure this out and make it a collaborative effort here. Of course, I kind of represent Modiphius. I can probably provide some resources, but let's put our heads together and just what does a game master developmental program look like to get people over the fear of running the game, the fear of getting Star Trek wrong. Where do we go from there? So I'm sure we could come up with some great ideas. So if you're on Discord, if you're on Facebook, if you're on the Reddit, whatever, start throwing some ideas together. We'll see them, and then we'll work on it. Yeah.
All right. Well, this one turned out really well. Good surprise episode. We like having grab bag questions, discussing what we're seeing the fans talking about online. So we're really happy to hear you all chattering about this, which is why we dragged it into this episode of Continuing Conversations. Thank you, Jim, so much. Let's do our normal shout outs.
Sure thing.
I'm going to go ahead and shout out Fox Comics and Games in Marion, Illinois. I've done that before. Benjamin Sloan, you're always going for the shout out. That's cool. He loves Fox Comics and Games. So Fox Comics and Games, good shout out. And then also Atomic Comics, Games, and Music in Muncie, Indiana. That's Thomas McManus. So we love doing those shout outs. Who do you want to shout out?
Oh man, I do this every week, and it's like, oh, who am I going to shout out this time? Because you get the fun one to shout out the game stores that are always the lifeblood of our hobby and our industry. I'm gonna shout out I don't do it often enough, but I'm gonna shout out the fans, all the fans who are supportive of the new fans coming into the game, who are supportive of the newbies and supportive of the experienced gamers, and want to share this game with other people. Thank you so much for supporting the game, but B, supporting each other, because that shows me how healthy this game is that, like, if Modiphius, knock on wood, it's not going to happen, but if Modiphius were to pull the plug tomorrow, would this game continue on? And I am confident we'd be playing Star Trek Adventures for a long time. Even when another, even if another game company were to pick up the Star Trek license and do another game, we would still be playing Star Trek Adventures because there's such a wealth of material now. But the fan base is so good right now and so supportive. I'm appreciative of all of you, even if I don't say it often enough. I try to say it often enough, but I don't. Because
no haters around here. It's Star Trek. We don't do haters in Star Trek. We're very positive community.
That's right. All right. So fantastic. Thank you for everybody. Thank you. Appreciate your efforts so much.
Still more to come. So we have just for everyone, we're not going to drop the names yet, but we have some pretty exciting interviews coming up, some guests in future shows. So stay tuned. And this year, the end of 2022, 2023 especially, there are going to be some jaw-dropping releases that we can't tell you about yet, but we'll drop it second here. I'll say second. Modiphius always announces it first, and then we'll drop it second here, I promise.
Yeah, but there's some cool stuff coming, and I just can't wait to finally get it working and get it out there. So be patient, and like I said before, save your Latinum, because it'll be well worth your time. So anyway, get us out of here.
IDIC.
Live long. Where's my camera? Live long, live prosper. Be safe, be well, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, bye-bye.